Delfina, cuando abramos, ¿tú abres con el saludo inicial?
Claro, con gusto.
Perdona, ¿no te escuché bien?
Que sí, que con gusto. Si les parece, ya vamos empezando porque la verdad es que
Vale.
tenemos 60 personas, que me parece un montón y me parece que por respeto a quienes se sumaron a tiempo, me parece que podemos ir iniciando. Bueno,
Perfecto.
buenos días.
Good morning, good afternoon. In some cases, you're almost at midnight. My name is Delfina Garcia Hamilton. I'm a specialist in women, peace and security from UN Women. Mar and Carolina, my colleagues, are here with us, together with Paula Mirazo. The four of us belong to UN Women, and we are responsible for providing support to our partner organizations in this such important platform in R4V. We want to include the gender approach, of course, in our strategic planning. We are everyone starting this, and we are having a 2-year planning, and we have just prepared our analysis, our assessment, our RMRP, and this is a great opportunity and a very interesting opportunity to reflect and to ask ourselves what is the situation in our organizations, how is this gender-based approach included, and we have to consider it as an opportunity to reinforce our capabilities. We have been providing support to this project for 3 or 4 years of this marker. We know you know that you can count on us. We are available to respond to questions. And well, now I will give the floor to my colleagues, Mar and Carolina. Thank you. Delfina, thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here today. My name is Carolina Tejada. I'm from Colombia. It is a pleasure to support this process such as we did it last year. And this year we have a few new things, but we know that this is a tool that will be very, very helpful to improve the project design as well as the implementation of all the activities. And we wouldn't like this to feel something like a burden in offering responses to refugees and migrants from Venezuela. We want it to be a tool. Mar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Tienen acceso a traducción.
Access to translation and interpretation. There's a link for you to access translation to other languages. Mar, would you like to introduce yourself? My name is Marco Pancaletti, and I'm here at the regional office of UN Women, and I'm providing support to this inclusion of the gender-based approach in humanitarian responses to our dear friends in Venezuela. So great, let's begin. I'm out of the city. I will turn off my camera to improve my connection, but I wanted for you to know that here I am anyway, but I will be turning off my camera. So what is the gender with age marker? We believe that it is very important to explain what this is about. This is a tool that has been designed by the Interagency Coordination Committee, and it's a tool that helps us improve our responses in the different contexts where we are. And it helps planning and implementation of the different activities. It makes it more effective, more equitable, and more participatory. And it helps us not forget this gender-based approach, as well as disability and age, but also ethnic condition. When we read response plans, oftentimes the chapters do not include this approach. So the gender with age marker helps us include all these different points of view. It is based on an intersectional gender-based approach, and you will see that it is an online questionnaire in a specific platform, different from the R4V, from the regional platform, because this is a global tool. And through this questionnaire, online questionnaire, we will be able to identify the different activities for planning for the RMRP that includes gender-based approach. There is a score from 0 to 4, and it also helps us identify our activities. We get a reference code. All this will be explained in a few minutes and online. It is very important for you to bear in mind the code and the score, let's say, in the gender marker, but also the reference code. These two numbers are important for the submission. And now we will explain in further detail
Vamos a tomar todas las actividades que proponemos
how all the activities for planning for 2023 and 2024 as if they were just one single project. Let's move on to the next slide. Something that we would like to tell you is that this session is being recorded for you to share it or to view it later on. There is an instruction guide, both in English and in Spanish for you to use. And there you will find the email addresses, Mar's email address as well as mine, and we will be willing to help you if you have any doubts. This gender with age marker considers 4 levels of analysis, 4 levels that we have to bear in mind for all projects. Therefore, the suggestion is for you to review and bear in mind the approach proposed by gender with the age marker before submission, before planning the activities, because some things can be adjusted, improved, now that you're considering the design and not when it's too late. These 4 levels addressed by the gender with age marker include 4 key questions. The first one is gender analysis. This means what information and what data did you take into account to design the activities? Did you consider the broken down information about men, women, girls, boys? Were you able to access information with data of people with disabilities, on the different types of population, on the different ethnic groups? And this is the first level of analysis. The second one is referred to tailored activities. How is this differential point of view included in the proposed actions? Not only whether you consider the design, but also how you include it in your proposals. And the third level is referred to participation, on how the beneficiaries will participate from the activities. Supposedly, they should have a very active role across the projects. And finally, there's benefits. These are the indicators. We know that we will go step by step, but this marker will probably produce or generate some doubts or questions. So if you have any concerns or questions, write them down on the Q&A session here on the chat, on frequent, this Q&A. Questions and answers, this section at the bottom. And at the end, we will try to solve all your concerns. I saw that someone was raising your hand, so let's answer the questions at the end, so as to make this presentation more dynamic and so as to stick to the time allocated. I had already mentioned that there is a guide. The guide is also on the regional's platform webpage, on the R4B page. There you will find the link, as well as this presentation that we will share it later on. To access the questionnaire, like we said, this questionnaire is in a platform that is different from the regional one, and both the presentation as well as the instruction guide and for submissions, you will find the link. Now we will do this live so that you can get an idea how this link works, and we will do it step by step. And of course, we want to recommend you not to forget to keep the GAM code, which is the 4 from 1 to 4, and the reference code, that is this long number that helps you identify the organization with the project you're submitting. Now, I would like to reinforce that since we do this for regional planning, we submit activities. Every agency or every organization takes into account all these activities and considers them as if they were just one single project. The 23-24, they are considered as one single project. And this is the one that is used with the gender with age marker. We shouldn't use it based on activity. It's just one per organization that is submitting this. And now let's see how the link works online. Once you answer the questions, you will receive a code, the reference code, and there is an additional window that says submit, which is very important not to forget to click on it, because otherwise the process won't be complete in the platform. This score that I was mentioning from 0 to 4, I call it a score, but these codes of the gender marker go from 0 to 4. And what do they mean? When the code is 4, this means that the different actions proposed contribute to gender equality, considering all age groups and people with disabilities. Remember that this is a gender marker, not only of the rights of women. Of course, it considers the situation of men, girls, boys, people with diverse gender identities based on their age, and also considering this disability dimension. When the code is 3, this means that the actions contribute to gender equality, but they do not consider age groups or people with disability. When the code is 2, this means that some age differences are addressed as well as disability, but gender equality is not considered or not taken into account. When the code is 1, this means that actions do not respond to gender differences or as well as age or disability differences. What they consider is general needs, and when it's 0, well, actions are not actually proposed.
Listo. Este código de género con edad.
This code, this gender with age marker, which is called GAM, in Spanish it would be called MGE, and has been implemented from 2020 to this day. And we have been doing a follow-up because if we have this goal and do nothing, well, it's useless. But it it really helps to identify that should be strengthened, but also we conduct follow-up to get to know how we include this approach as a response to migration. In 2020, in the code, 137 organizations participated. In 2021, 159, and in 2022, 272.
Aunque las
Even
organizaciones
though the organizations that achieve this score 4, which means that we are really including gender equality, it goes up when consider all the questions and when we have some things that should be emphasized. Anyway, we should take into account different figures that due to COVID-19, in the whole region, there was setback and many processes were slowed down also. So that is why it is important to consider this approach. I will mention very briefly what we experienced in previous years for us to take it into account. But anyway, we will devote more time for you to get to know this online platform. First of all, when we started in 2020 using this marker, you can see that the organizations that planned considering the needs according to gender roles and age dynamics. I mean, we recognized that needs were different for women, men, girls, or boys. And another part, a larger portion, was also taking into account general needs without breaking down based on the different gender roles. And what was concerning is that 26% was planning their activities without assessing needs because they planned this way. I don't want to take a lot of time in this part, but as you can see that the planning did not include this differential view, and the indicators, however, had a higher percentage in terms of inclusion of men, women, girls, and boys. But if we don't do an accurate reading, well, the indicators won't be so consistent either. What happened in 2021? In 2021, there was a significant increase in organizations that had analyzed how this approach was included. So they achieved a score of 4. But when we started to break down, as you can see, these light blue bars, when we did this analysis, when we started analyzing the organizations and how they analyze their needs, you can see that there are many organizations that still need to look for broken down information, for specific information. And this is something that we want to encourage, and we believe that it is vital for this planning, because there are reports, documents, etc., that are helping us to get this information. In 2022, sorry, but there was an interruption. Well, there was a larger number of percentage of the people who achieved this score 4. However, 13% of the organizations do not have this differential analysis. 20% do not adapt their activities in a differential manner based on needs of women, men, girls, boys. 17% do not include populations across the implementation of the project. Sometimes they participate only for evaluation, but we believe that communities, groups with which we really work, have an experience that we will have to include on the projects. And including benefits, well, we have had some better results in terms of the indicators.
When we try to write the chart as to how the groups are, this is a chart of the different groups of stakeholders. We have an important number that take into account all the different gender groups. Some are more focused only on women. There's another smaller that have to do with people with diverse gender orientations and LGBTI and plus, and there's also another group for which taking into account gender roles, needs, and gender conditions is not included in the work. And we want to encourage this to include it each time more. Now, in this link, you can find the different results per country. You can identify where you have strengths and weaknesses per country in order to continue on this process. And with this general element, well, now we can see the platform. This is the last slide that we have here. And this shows an analysis of how we are taking into account this intersectionality perspective in different places. If you see in orange, that is no, is still an important percentage. For example, when we talk about including the perspective from persons with disabilities, it's a little bit less for the LGTB people or other gender groups. And when we want to advance in the SDGs regarding gender equality, regarding roles and gender relationships. So with this slide, I will give the floor to Mar. And now we are going to delve into the tool itself, but we thought it was a good idea to have this initial background because this is what will make sense to this next step-by-step explanation. So thank you very much and good luck in this year with all your missions. Thank you, Carolina, for all this explanation and all this comparative perspective that should encourage us to continue this work. Now, I will no longer share this presentation and we will go to the link, okay? Please let me know if you can see my screen. We still cannot see your screen. Now you should, right? Yes, I can see the presentation. Yes, yes, exactly. I have your screen and we can see it. Great. Now it is refreshing, loading again. Okay. So this is the platform, the Gender with Age Marker or GAM platform. This is useful and so far we only had it in a few languages in English. So when you enter the link, you will see that the platform is in English. So the first thing that you should do specifically to understand the questions better and for us to be more comfortable is to go to choose language and there you can switch to Spanish. This is the first thing that you need to do because there's no way to create a link in Spanish so far. So the first thing we have is this option that is also new, relatively new, is to run a test. If you want to get familiarized with the different questions and the time frames, or if we want to register a project, a proposal. So for this session, for this purpose, we're going to start only with a test or practice, okay? So then we have to choose whether we are in the design or monitoring phase. Why? Because this tool was thought and designed also to apply when we have already started with a project and we already have data of our project, okay? So here we are going to choose the design phase. This is where we are right now, and we go to next. So then we have to include our name, the professional title. We want to understand the role and the electronic email. Why is this important? Because in case we have an incident, then the platform would have this data gathered and we could just recover the information if there's any kind of error or maybe we forget, so we can recover it. So here we can have other addresses of additional emails, but it's not mandatory. So whenever you see a star, it means that you need to complete that field. That is, it's mandatory, okay? So here, name, and then the email, and then next. Now, the next step is to indicate what is the type of organization or agency, if we are a national or local NGO, and the name of the agency. Well, we have different databases to make it faster. In our case, we need to go to other because the organizations of Latin America and the Caribbean are not registered in the list. So here we have to go to other and then give the name of our NGO and the name of the project. In order to gather this information easier, we're going to write RMRP 2023-2024, okay? And then the years of the project. So in this case, we're just going to click to 2023, 2024. We can click on others. Regarding the country, we know that many of you work on multiple countries because you have the different organizations in different countries. And if that is the case, you have to choose the country with the greatest number of activities because the platform does not allow yet to include more than one country, okay? So here I'm going to write Peru. So here we have the different sectors or clusters. So I'm going to just click on health, nutrition, and protection. So there's no minimum or maximum. And then the donors. So this information is to know what are the donors that are supporting with this, but it's not mandatory. If you'd rather not say this, there's no problem. Okay, so you can choose to put it or not. I just chose to put it and I'm writing echo. So then you have this section that is GAM relevance. This is a specific question. And what we want to know here is whether the gender perspective, gender mainstreaming has been worked on. So you select, if you select one of these three options, let's say that we already have a GAM code 0. So let's say that you're already working. Let's imagine that you are working on adapting the responses to the GAM and diversities, then you choose not to mark any options. Then we go to the next. Then you can find the instructions as to how to complete this on the website, and you can revisit this, no problem. So out of these four phases, you have the first one, that is the gender analysis. Now, in this field, what we're asked to do is to describe briefly in a couple of lines in the project area, that is, what are the gender inequalities that you come across where you're going to offer this response, right? So you have to describe this and also the assessment as to how the situation is looking like. And after this, you have to select one of these three options, only one of the three, whenever you have a circle. So if you are analyzing the needs of the affected population groups, and if other than the needs you have also analyzed or go more in depth regarding obstacles or barriers of different types of population, or if there's still no analysis of needs. Okay, so here I'm going to write some kind of description. I have to complete something because if not, I cannot continue. So if we say that we have done an analysis of the needs, that we are like collecting the needs, maybe no other variables, but yes, the needs of the affected populations, then you have other options. So the first one is we have to understand what are the gender groups that were analyzed. That is, if there's a differential report, for example, access to water for women is this and for men is this, and maybe for elderly women we're not including them. So here you have to click at to what level you have done this analysis, this disaggregated analysis. So I'm just choosing men and women. So then I have to select all gender groups. So if I just consider differences between men and women, then I click on all gender groups. And then this is something recent. And here there's a question is whether I have considered the situation of LGBTI groups. So you can say yes or no, not yet. After this, there's a question about the age groups. So have I considered the specific situation of certain age groups? For example, here you can choose the groups that you need, and if it's all, you have an option that says all age groups. And then you are asked about a disability. This is the last thing we included. So have I analyzed access of women to water and access of women with disability to water? So if I have done so, here I also have the option of LGBTI with disabilities. So you have different options to click on. And now it's a second phase, and this is the gender with age marker and adapted assistance. This is activities, always with the same logic. So I have looked into the needs problems, obstacles, or if my project is addressing specifically discrimination due to gender, for example. So as in the previous stage, I say yes, and the project has been working based on the needs, and here I have the same thing, yes. So the assistance is going to be adapted regarding gender issues and what are the age groups, and regarding disabilities, the same thing. If I have taken into account women with disabilities, men with disabilities, LGBTI population with disabilities, then if the activities intend to modify or change the roles or relationships or gender relationships, because we understand that this is a component that we want to foster. So we say yes in case the activities have this element included, or we can also choose no, not yet. And lastly, here you have a field where we have the opportunity of further explaining as to how this assistance will be adapted. So how the gender analysis is going to be translated to the response. Third stage. So here we're going to talk about participation or involvement, how much these population groups or these communities are being involved throughout all our project. So what is the focus? So the first question is, we can answer or give more than an option. And here we have to indicate in what stage of the projects you're going to involve the people of the communities. Maybe in the needs assessment, I said yes. In the design of activities, maybe I have a focus groups just to understand these answer. And then as with the other questions regarding gender, what are the groups involved. So there I'm just saying all gender groups, then the age groups involved. And then you are asked, have you foreseen that people with disabilities have a chair at this table? That is, that you're involving them. If you say yes, you click on yes. If not, no or not yet. And lastly, just as in the other stage, you are asked to comment how these different groups of affected people will be participating and having an influence in the project. Then you have an area of benefits. How do we know who are the beneficiaries, who are getting a positive impact from the project? Sometimes the indicators are the way or that we have as organizations in order to understand and to measure what we are doing and specifically to improve. So the first question intends to collect this information. That is, if we'll have an indicator, we'll measure whether these needs are satisfied, or if we have at least an indicator that will measure if the activities are developed. So we can select the different options. One says if there's no indicators. And what Carolina said, it's really interesting to go through the different stages, because maybe you can realize, oh, I wasn't using indicators, but maybe this is a chance, an opportunity to have these indicators to be able to measure and to show proof of what we're doing. Is there at least one indicator that breaks down this information, and based on what? On gender, age, or disability? And the same thing is if we have an indicator that has been broken down per age group or gender in order to see up to what extent we're going to gather this impact that we're having on the groups, and also with disability as well. And to end this stage, we have two fields where we can write our arguments and our thoughts. The first one is that you need to explain how you will be informed about the benefits for the groups and who these who's the population that is going to receive this impact. So we have defined the indicators and how we're going to gather the information from the indicators. And lastly, it asks us to think about the benefits that we expect to obtain from the activities that we have thought based on the assessment of the needs. Okay, so we go through the four phases or stages and we go to the result. As my colleague said, we have two codes to take into account, and they are essentials. The first one is the GAM code from 1 to 4. In this case, it's 4 because we have selected mostly in all the options that we have decided to include gender, age, and disability. Maybe not all the ranges, but we are included this. So this is why our GAM code is 4. So what you can do here is to just copy this code in a separate document, or just have a screen snapshot, but make sure not to lose the code. And lastly, you have this reference number. Here you don't have the reference number because it's a test environment, but this is where you would have this reference number. It's really very important to copy this reference number in a different document, copy it handwritten, or just to have a screenshot. So it's really very important for you to copy and keep this information somewhere, because the information is not automatically being sent to you by email. So, and then you have to choose to submit or send, right? So first you copy the code numbers and then send, okay, or submit. So this is a demonstration as to how we include all this information. Of course, it takes time, because of everything that needs to be written. Something that we recommend is to have the text pre-written in another document also, in case something goes wrong in the platform. So if you have to complete these fields of text, just copy it from other place, and also to be able to use these as a tool to do some thinking, right? Regarding the different perceptions and different realities that coexist in different regions. So now we open for Q&As. If you have any doubts, comment, questions, I will stop sharing my screen and I will read you in the sections of Q&A, okay?
Two people have raised their hands, but first I will read the questions. So the first one, Carolina, are you still here? Because I know that you would like to answer some of the questions. If you're not here, I can do it myself. Okay, so I will answer. Okay, she's no longer here. No worries. Somebody is asking, the person who registers is the person who represents the organization or the technical contact? It could be the person who's filling in the information, a protection officer or gender officer, or some kind of representative. That's valid. Both contacts are okay, no problem, but if it's someone that should be reachable after a couple of months. The second question made by Jessica, if funds are not requested, but we want to be part of the response plans, and should we be part of the GAM? And being part of the response plan means that you have to do the GAM, but funds go through a separate process. So they go together, of course, but in terms of monitoring, we invite you to complete the GAM for monitoring, but it's a tool that we are planning to strengthen in the design, and then we will see how we will focus on monitoring. Susana Herrera is asking a question. If it's an international organization, can't I add more countries? No, this does not depend on us, because this is a tool that Carolina was already mentioning. It's from IASC. So the change or modification of these options is not up to us. So what we have decided is to include just one country, and further on, when this option is available, you will be able to add more. Ivana asks, mental health is not there. You mean sectors? It might be that some sectors that are in the R4V, in the response and in the system, this that has been created for a response for Venezuela's migration is not there. This is a tool that is useful for humanitarian responses in different parts of the world. So if it's not there, no worries. It's just a guide, what we want to see. Another person is asking, if the organization is present in more than one country for planning activities, well, no, you don't have to make different submissions by country, and we don't want you to work extra. So the country that has more activities, for example, and that's it. There have been lots of questions. Olga also is commenting this. I want this to be clear. Just one marker per organization and per project, apart from the fact that you have operations and responses in many countries. Age groups are standards, where age groups follow what humanitarian standards indicate. In the ASC web, they are there, but it's just a guide. It doesn't matter if you include children and not teenagers, because sometimes the limit is a little bit blurred, but you can include both if you're in doubt. What we want to know is to try to understand whether there's a differential response. More questions that have already been answered. Okay, Isabel Pastor asks, what do you mean exactly by the people with disabilities influencing on the project management? What we try here is the following. First of all, to mention that people with disabilities many times have been moved away from community spaces. Sometimes we want to understand what is happening in the communities. So it is very important to understand that in these community spaces where there are community leaders, etc., we want to understand whether there are people with disabilities. Of course, they can be at the same time leaders or members of a community sectors or associations, but these spaces, the more diverse, the more they will help us to understand the reality. So in the project management, we want to understand whether people are being consulted on where the activities will take place, or for whom, and what for what activities. Desire is also asking whether we will send the recording. Yes, we will send it, both the instruction guide together with this presentation and the recording too. Liliana Becerra is asking whether we have to enter or submit the form only once or more than once. It's just once for all the project, which is a general response, of course. And we know that we will get more projects from that one, but it's just one. Maria is asking whether backup document will be requested. No, basically, no. And this is how the organization is proposing. There won't be a need for attachments or the like. So Verónica Alexandra del Castillo is asking a question that is really valid, whether there is a PDF where we can see the whole GAM questionnaire to write these checks, just in case. No, we have this question. We didn't send this question format, but with this test, you can enter and you can copy these questions. This is quite quick, or even with the instruction guide, you can have the PDF next to you beforehand, and you can prepare it. I think that's a really good idea to save time. Who should participate in the implementation or filling in the GAM? Just one person, but in understanding, we invite multidisciplinary teams to participate. We want many people to think about how you are doing this, conducting this. Livia Manente is asking, the form speaks about projects. However, in the response plan, in the RMRP, we mention activities, or activities are mentioned. Well, it's the same, just send only one. Here we need just either you perform one or many activities, I mean, one single form you have to send. The link will be included in the instruction guide. You will find it on the web page. And, well, there's a question about whether these results are taken for drafting a report. Well, you can keep this information internally in your organizations for follow-up purposes and to understand how to adapt monitoring. For us, it is important so as to understand how the responses are having an impact on gender. Carolina read all these did the readings of these 3 years, and it's very important. So we encourage you to do this also. The codes, Liliana is asking about the codes. You get the code only once. You cannot retrieve the code. So what we are highlighting is that you have to get these 2 codes at the end of the 4th phase and send it. Maria Manuela Farina is asking about the timelines, and now, very briefly, I will share this PowerPoint because at the end, we have the timelines or this, like our colleagues already mentioned in a session last week, these timelines are the following. Where the RMRP activities are submitted, so in these forms, you have to include the 2 codes. So it has to be done before. You can do it some days before you keep it, and when you submit the activities, that's when you have to include them. And this is what you will see in the response plan form in R4V. You will get a question about the reference number, which is a long one, and then the global GAM code, which can be 3 or this is the complete instruction guide. Here you will find the links, a step-by-step description. And anyway, here you have our email addresses, Carolina's address and mine. If you have any doubts, any concerns, we will be here to answer them. So I will stop sharing my screen, and I think that all the questions were already answered. The last ones are from Yolimar Peñalosa. Do you share the results of the survey? Well, we will share them and we will analyze them sometime later to understand our evolution. We won't share them with donors, etc. for the time being, because we want to know is to have this internal accountability process. But anyway, we are making an effort to be able to use this data for different things. Donors are asking for this, and they really want to know that these things are being used rather than just gathering information. So thank you for this comment, Yolimar. And Liliana is asking, the dates are the ones that we mentioned at the end, from 8th to the 17th of September. That's when you have to send this information. I think I have answered all the questions. Are there any further questions? Thank you, Liliana. You're welcome. Sorry. So if you have further questions, we can answer them with Carolina. We know that it seems a lot of work, but it's interesting, or it's better to do it slowly with time, because we have these weeks before it has to be sent. In the end, it ends up being easy, but the first time, it will take a while until you get familiarized with it. And we have to think about things that we haven't thought before. So this is it. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues want to comment something extra. This is it. Yeah, I think there are no more questions. We will send you the link by email, and don't worry, because we will try to do it as soon as possible so that you have enough time. So thank you, dear colleagues, for joining, for being here. It's in the end, it has been just 1 hour of a webinar. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here, willing to learn and to have some information about these GAM, which this will help strengthen the gender approach in our responses and to transform things that are structural, but we know that all contributions are more than welcome. Thank you very much. I hope you're well, and well, we'll keep in touch.